Hey everyone, Heather here, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and doing a review on Heavensward, the first expansion in Final Fantasy XIV. A few days ago, I finished Heavensward on New Game Plus, so I was able to relive the whole experience, and it was so much fun. So here's your spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about all of Heavensward, including the patch content, right up until the very beginning of Stormblood. And with that said, let's get into it. So let's start with my overall impression of Heavensward. First of all, my expectations for Heavensward, since my brother was the one who introduced me to Final Fantasy XIV, he was very clear in there is a huge level up between A Realm Reborn and Heavensward. And so I kind of went in with that expectation, even if he hadn't put that in my head, that there's going to be a huge level up, you could definitely feel it. I really think that for so many reasons, Heavensward just seemed so much easier to follow, and I understand that, A Realm Reborn is world building, it's establishing the fact that it's an open world MMO kind of a thing, but Heavensward just felt so much more linear, but not in a way that was boring. It was just easier for me to connect with the characters since there aren't a bunch of characters being introduced at the same time, but we spend a lot of time with the same characters, and it kind of feels like any other RPG where you're a member of a party, right? You're the leader of the party and you have 3 side characters or other NPCs that are part of your party, and you get to go through all the adventures and you bond, you make memories and all of that. I also loved the narration by Count Edmont.
With hope yet in their hearts, they came.
I love the idea of framing this chapter of the story as a book, right? It's all in his memoirs, and his narrations really kind of came at the perfect time to frame everything, right? Here's this episode of this story or this chapter of the story, and here's how it fits into the bigger picture. I think that's why it was just, for so many reasons, it was so much easier for me to follow what was happening with Heavensward. I felt a lot more invested in the story. The other thing I really liked about Heavensward is that you really got a sense of your role as the Warrior of Light. We're not a main character, right? We're not a character that necessarily has a backstory, say someone like Cloud, right? Or Squall or something like that. They feel so much more straightforward compared to the Warrior of Light, which feels a lot more ambiguous. And I think the reason is because all of our Warrior of Lights are different. I think that we all feel different ways and different connections, and people have all kinds of head lore, different kinds of thoughts on their own Warrior of Light. So it's really interesting that in Heavensward, they're able to paint a picture that every Warrior of Light is this important, this powerful, this is their role, but then also there's that flexibility of people can feel different things about their own main character. And there's just so much more character development. I feel like everyone goes through a mini arc that is very compelling, even the Warrior of Light, right? Even when we lose our Heidelin's blessing because Midgardsormr is psh, you're not going to have it anymore, and getting them all back. Alphino and his whole thing, which I did a hour-long video on in my last video. Emmerich and Destinian and Lucia and Azelle, there's just so much more depth with the characters, and I think it goes back to being able to spend more time with fewer characters, that we are able to understand their complexities and the depth of what they're all going through. Definitely by Heavensward, I think I had already just signed up to subscribe. I think I had plenty of time left on the free trial, but I just knew I was going to keep playing this until I caught up with everybody else, because I just felt more invested in the story, and I'm glad I did. Now let's talk about my Heavensward favorites, and Bento the Benevolent is going to be helping me do this. And also, I would love to hear your Heavensward favorites, so feel free to type up your own list and share it in the comments. So first up is favorite trial. So this one was hard to pick because I felt like the trials in Heavensward were so much fun. I remember trying to jump on Bismarck and I just fell my first time. King Thornton and his Knights of the Round, super, super cool to watch. But my favorite trial was the final steps of faith when we go up against Nidhogg's Shade, right? So this is when Estinian has meshed with both of Nidhogg's eyes, and Nidhogg has come back with a vengeance on top of his vengeance. It felt so like climactic. It felt super epic. I don't know what high-end raids feel like because I've never done them, right? But I feel like it's that thrill of like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. There's all these markers on the floor. It felt very just like high pressure, but super exciting. And of course, the cutscene when Estinian transforms was crazy. Moving on, we've got, what do we got? Favorite lines. So this is getting harder and harder as I progress with New Game Plus because, you know, they're long games and there's so much good dialogue. But I did happen to narrow it down to 3. I guess the difference is like there are a lot of great dialogue lines in Final Fantasy XIV, but with these I'm trying to think of like quotes that, regardless of whether you've played the game or not, are just great quotes to share. So 2 of them are actually from Alze.
As long as the sun rises, we can but carry on.
I think that's just good advice, right? It's like you can only do your best and you just got to keep on going. That's all you can do. And you could sit here and feel the gravity and the magnitude of everything that you're dealing with, but all we can do is carry on. I like that. And the other quote from hers is this. I felt like Alize really allowed you as a player to think about and reflect about the consequences of all these things that we're doing in the game, because it's like it never stops, right? Like there's always, if it's not this, it's this. It's not Nidhogg, it's the Ascians. It's like there's all these things that we're dealing with, but like let your heart burst, feel all the things, and then we can but carry on. My other favorite line is by Urianger.
That the brightest light might shine, duty did compel me to walk in darkest shade.
I just really like how he worded this, you know, and I understand why he did what he did. It's funny because I feel like this is the same thing that King Thornton could say, right? Like, I had to do this, but it's for the greater good. I feel like every antagonist, well, not every, a lot of the antagonists in Final Fantasy XIV can say this same thing. So it's interesting to have such an important good guy, right? Like such an important main character in Final Fantasy XIV who's on our side, who's on the good side, say this, because it really, like, I feel like, you know, Emperor Varys can say this, like King Thornton can say this. Izel straight up says this many times, right? Like everyone's trying to do what they think is best for the greater good, which is why I think there's so much depth to Final Fantasy XIV. I felt like Gaius in A Realm Reborn was like, okay, you're just the Empire and whatever, but in Heavensward you really get a sense of those complexities to the point where like the good guys are also doing things that are sus. Interesting. Next up is what do we got? MVP. So I had to call it MVP because I can't say favorite character. There's just too much to say about every single character. So instead of favorite character, I was like, let's talk about who I thought the MVP was. And the MVP, Most Valuable Player Award, goes to Lucia. I love Lucia's story. She really stood out to me immediately. Like, you know, this is relatively early on in the story that is Final Fantasy XIV. Like, we're still like in the first half of the grand scheme of things. What I really liked about her story is that it really isn't about where you're born, right? So like you can be born Garlean, you can be born Eorzean, but there is going to come a point where you're going to get a sense of the other side, and you're probably going to have to make that choice for yourself. Like, sure, you were born into this. Sure, everyone when you were growing up was telling you like that's the good side, or this is the good side and that's the bad side. But like now that you are old enough to make your own decisions and you have experience and you can get a sense of like what do I think then you can declare for yourself where your values lie and what you believe in and how you want to act on those beliefs. I don't know what video. I think it was my A Realm Reborn characters video, but I completely forgot that Lucia and Livia were sisters. Watching that scene again, I remembered that scene, right? Because she's talking about how she was a spy for the Empire, and then she got captured and then got to know Emmerich and decided, like, this is actually the guy that I want to follow because I believe in his vision. You know, even though they weren't close, and I think that they got separated at really young ages, you still have like two Garlean sisters acting in very different ways, right? Like Livia, I don't know what to describe how she feels about Gaius, but is like super all about Gaius and the Empire and their vision. And then Lucia had a task, right? Like had a task to be a spy for the Garlean Empire. And then when she had the chance to see what someone in Eorzea was doing, it's like she's able to make the decision for herself that this is what I believe in, and so I'm gonna dedicate my life to this. I also feel like she's the best second in command. Like, wouldn't anybody want Lucia as their second in command, right? Like, Emmerich is super lucky because this girl is willing to do anything. When Emmerich gets captured because he decides to go confront his father, he gets held captured, and Lucia is the one that's like, we need to go get him back.
Though he comports himself as a realist, he has long dreamt of reform. 'Twas that idealism which first drew me to him, that which made me swear an oath to serve. We must not think of ways to hinder his cause, but rather ways to aid it, even should the Holy See cry heresy.
Your words border on treason. Should they reach the wrong ears, you will be declared an enemy of Ishgard.
That is a risk I am willing to take.
She's the one who recruits, you know, House Fortom, us, the Warrior of Light. She gets all these allies. And she even goes so far as to recruit Hilda in the Broom, which is crazy because it's like, I really think that if it were anybody else, any other highborn Ishgardian, I don't think that they would have thought to go and recruit Hilda because it's like, there's just too much of a gap. But Lucia's Garlean, right? So she's already used to making her own decisions and having her own like different perspective and perceptions of people. And I think that the wall between lowborn and highborn is just not, it's just not there the way that it would be with any of the other Ishgardian characters. And it's just so cool to see someone so dedicated, being so resourceful and trying everything, right? Like really thinking out of the box to do what she believes in. Next up is what do we got? We got favorite dungeon. So my favorite dungeon by far, like I had like a giant smile on my face playing this the first time. I remember my brother asking me like, oh, so what's your favorite dungeon? Like, this is the one that always stood out to me, at least up until this point in the story, which was the Great Google Library. Everything about it was so cool. Like, just the story of like, there's this abandoned library. Well, first of all, I love libraries, right? So my favorite movie ever is Beauty and the Beast, the Disney cartoon version from the 90s. And Belle was my favorite because she was all about like, she was just so independent. She was all about reading, and Beast like gifted her that huge library in the castle. And I just like, I used to work at a library. I'm all about the books, right? So the Great Google Library, like I love the idea of this huge library, but it also had like protections and spells in it. And because it's just been abandoned all this time, like everything in it has allowed to run amok, you know? And now it's just like, now there's all these things that we don't know what the heck is in it because it's just, you know, it's just lived unchecked. And I felt like the enemies in there were so unique. It was like unlike any of the enemies that we had battled so far. Not just like kind of different, but like so totally unique. It was fun to see. Like, it was fun to turn the corner and see like, who are we going to fight next? And then also the music. Oh my gosh, the music. Like, I remember straight up turning up my speaker because I was like, this is the jam right here. super fun dungeon. Like, I think it's still my favorite. I don't know. All right, favorite solo duty. So my favorite solo duty is Assault on the Vault. And this is when we've already defeated King Thornton. Emmerich is like temporarily in command since there is currently no archbishop, but there's still these people that believe in like the traditional old ways, and they think that Emmerich committed patricide, and you know they're not accepting the truth. I think at the end of this duty, this is when the priest dude pushes the girl off the ledge, which is like super dark. What the heck? We had a lot of the NPCs on our side. Like Emmerich was leading the charge. I don't know. It was just like, it was super cool. Actually, I do remember the first time I played this, I actually died because I couldn't find one of the refugees that you were supposed to save. And like, I just like, it was like duty failed. But yeah, this one was so much fun. The one I was thinking was my favorite was the Grand Melee. That one was so fun too, because it's like, you know, it's all these NPCs like Nanamo, Kane-san is there, where we have to do like the duel against Raubon, which is super fun. But I really do wish that more of those lines were voiced. I felt like it would have really just added to how important the Grand Melee was. Next up is what we got. Favorite beast tribe. My favorite beast tribe was the Nath. I just really like the idea of the one mind versus the non-mind, especially since the non-mind didn't have any choice in having their sense of self emerge. It wasn't like, today I want to be a me. It was just like they woke up one day, they had a sense of self. And I think that because they were no longer part of the hive mind, they just were exiled. But it's funny because, like, of course, like, because I've had a sense of self my whole life, I would think that that's the better option, right? Even though probably when they first got exiled, they probably thought something was wrong with them, and it's like they don't belong. So it's interesting to hear their story of like, well, now that we all have this sense of individuality, what is our purpose? What is our goal? Now they want to trade. Like they want to be a part of the world. And it's funny because they've never had that chance. Then what do we got? We got favorite outfit. Favorite outfit definitely goes to Thancred. I love his new outfit because I really didn't like his A Realm Reborn outfit. The knee-high sandals as a fighter did not make sense to me. I don't know. Now I'm just being nitpicky, I know. But his Heavensward outfit, it matches his fighting style. It matches his personality. It's super badass. It's just such a step up from his A Realm Reborn outfit. There's a lot of outfits in Heavensward that I like, but Thancred's was like, it was just the biggest step up. Also, I have to give a special shout out to Count Edmond's boots because, look at them boots. They're like so awesome. I need to get Tom those boots. Babe, I'm gonna get you those boots. Oh, it's our last one. It is favorite zone. So my favorite zone was definitely the Churning Mist. A lot of those zones in Heavensward were so cool, but with the Churning Mist specifically, you really got a sense of, we are the first people here in 1,000 years. And I remember on my first playthrough, I specifically flew to the top of Zenith because I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like everything is on such a different scale because dragons and humans used to be tight. Now let's move on to story highlights. So the first thing is that I really loved adventuring with Izel, Alphino, and Estinian. It just felt, it felt so cool. Maybe because it felt like a traditional RPG where you're the leader of the party and then you have like the 3 characters that are with you every step of the way, to the point where you're not only defeating enemies together and exploring the world together, but you're also having these like slice of life moments where there's dialogue between the characters. I don't know, it felt comforting. Like I really did feel like I was on an adventure with friends. Also, Alphino takes such a step up from where he came from with his whole Crystal Braves thing, because he's now having to serve as mediator between Izel and Estinian on many occasions. And it's cool to see him do that and then also reflect on his own actions. And also like the contrast between Ezel and Estinian, two sides of the same coin. They started off on the same side. They get it. But then Ezel has the echo and now knows this truth that of course is going to be hard to believe at face value, especially if you're Estinian of all people. But just to see them kind of navigate all of Heavensward together.
Shall I relate it to you? The sordid history my gift has shown me. That which the Holy See has taken such pains to suppress.
It was just such a compelling story. Like, I was just so in it. I really wanted to see them collaborate, them argue.
You cannot still mean to slay him.
You cannot still mean to stop me.
Like, I wanted to see the reactions when finally the truth was unveiled. Like, I remember thinking like, ooh, what is Estinian gonna think about this?
You speak of continuing this war?
Nay, lady. I would but pierce its vengeful heart. When Nidhogg dies, this war shall die with him.
It broke my heart when Ezel finds out the truth about her Shiva and how her Shiva is just kind of a figment of her own imagination.
That I should be blinded by my own lies. Everything I believed, everything I thought I was, gone. All gone.
I think the reason why I feel so bad for her is that, like, I think that's something that a lot of people do. I'm sure it's something that I have done. You know, I think like we can put the heroes that we admire on pedestals. But in Ezel's case, like, her perception becomes a primal, right? And she ends up becoming the vessel for that primal. And it's just so heartbreaking because not only does she know the truth, right? Like, she feels like she's this, not prophet, but like she feels special because she is the only one who knows the truth because she has the echo, right? Like, no one else has got the echo, at least to her knowledge. And when she feels like she loves Hraesvelgr or has this unique connection to Hraesvelgr because of Shiva, and Hraesvelgr is like, no, I don't, nah. Oh, it's just so sad.
I have surrendered mine to her. Do you not see, my love? I am Shiva reborn. Then the spirit that answered me.
I think a lot of people can resonate with painting a picture in your head and that picture being what you think reality is, right? Like, you believe that picture in your head to be the truth. And when that truth is challenged, it can really feel like an attack on your identity. That's what happens with Ezel. But like, it's also so crushing because it all happens in front of us, right? Like, it all happens in front of Estinian, and he's just like, leave her to deal with her own shattered faith. Like, it's just so sad.
Leave her. Your words will not reach her now. And we have not the time to wait for her to gather up the pieces of her shattered faith.
I love a lot about her story, but one thing that really sticks out to me is that, you know, of course her and Hraesvelgr end up making amends, but she decides to place all of her bets on the Warrior of Light, right? Like, she acknowledges that she messed up. She doesn't try to hide it. She knows that she messed up and she takes that in stride. But then now that she has come this far in her journey and done all these things that have consequences, and she felt like she did everything that she could, you could just feel that sense of surrender and giving it her all to pass the torch on to the Warrior of Light, right? Like, when she sacrifices herself as Shiva to save them from that new Garlean airship.
Much blood has been spilled in my name. And for what? For a false cause that I created for want of the warmth of companionship. Saint Shiva, pray Svelga. Pray forgive this fool. But even now, I cannot let go of my dream. My dream of a tomorrow in which no child need freeze alone in the snow. Farewell, warrior of light, and thank you for showing me the way.
No!
That's a heartbreaking scene. Like, it's funny because I get a sense that a lot of people talk about Haurchefant's scene a lot, like his death scene. Like, it's very like, oh my gosh, didn't see that coming. But I feel the same way with Izel's, you know, just because it just was such a, it's just such a tragic story. Like, I feel like, it's just so sad. The Haurchefant thing is super sad too. Actually, now that we're talking about him, Haurchefant, Horsey. He just so believes in the potential of the Warrior of Light. I think he plays a huge part in the Warrior of Light and the player feeling the uniqueness of our position as the Warrior of Light, right? Because it's like, okay, sure, we have the title Warrior of Light, but no. Here's why. Like, we are a beacon of hope, not just to him. And like, who is he to be like, yeah, you're a beacon of hope? No, he puts it into perspective of like, here is what you existing has done for other people, and their hope and their belief in the future and helping them to take action. People are going to sacrifice themselves because they believe in us as the Warrior of Light. And they believe in not only our potential to be able to do something about it, but to also save the world and create a world where people can be happy and Eorzea can be safe. That theme is something that I don't think hammered home in A Realm Reborn, because I was just confused. Like, I just felt like I'm an adventurer, and you do what adventurers do, and you quest, and then you turn in the quests, right? And it's whatever. Like, now we're defeating Primals. But in the case of Haurchefant, Heavensward, it's like, no. There's this bigger picture, and we play a role in that. And Estinian. So I really liked Estinian's character, especially in Heavensward, because he's such a symbol of Ishgard and like why Ishgard is the way that Ishgard is, and the whole idea of the good guys actually betraying themselves, because obviously like King Thordy knows the truth and has been withholding that truth, and you see Estinian's reaction to that and how he's conflicted about it, what he does as a result, how he moves forward. One of my other favorite scenes is the scene where we are not willing to forsake Estinian, even though he's on a suicide mission at this point. You know, he's just like, I've got both Nidhogg's eyes, just kill me so that Nidhogg is like, his reign of terror ends. Like, who cares about me? If we defeat Nidhogg, who is inside me right now, no one else gets hurt. And he's just like so determined that is the outcome.
You waste your time. Kill me! It is the only way! Ending Nidhogg will be my final duty.
No! You can't die like this! I won't let you!
Alphino, of all people, to be the one to say like, no, I refuse. Like, I refuse to accept that is the only way, and I will do everything to save you. It's just such a growth point for him, especially coming from A Realm Reborn. That's when I'm like, see, Alphino, when you decide what you believe in and what you want to do, not what other people think that you need to do, and not what you think you have to do, but when you find out for yourself what drives you, and it's the love and care that you have for the people that are important to you, like, this is what you're capable of.
Yet even if Sir Emmerich is willing to forsake Estinian, I am not. We must fight for him, for he is our friend and ally. We may struggle, we may fail, but we must try.
It's just such a moving moment and a testament to Alphino's determination, right? Like, it's not just like for the freedom for all and for the freedom of Eorzea. It's like there's a face to the name. It's just all so real, and you could just feel it, right? I just love that scene so much. It's so good. A lot of the funniest lines, like the lines where I found myself cracking up, were from Estinian. They weren't voiced though, so like, you know, it's fine, but they were, you know, the way that he feels about the Mughals. I think he said something about the Nath and Ishgard, which really made me laugh. I think it had something to do with like, if the one mind was in Ishgard, like there's no way they'd last a bell. It's funny because I felt like a lot of his lines added that comic relief, but Estinian as a character is the last person I would expect that comic relief to come from. Next up, Emmerich. So Emmerich, oh man, he was the one whose voice actor I looked up for the first time because it was just so good. It was such a step above.
Bloodshed without end. Losses beyond counting, and still we fought. And still we fought.
But the thing I really like about Emmerich's character and what he brings to the story is that, like, first of all, he's a bastard, right? So that's interesting in terms of Ishgardian society and culture. But, like, even though it's something that everyone kind of knows but isn't saying out loud, he still has proven that, like, despite his background, he's able to like surpass that and still have an influence, still prove himself, still be strong. I think that's why Lucia admires him so much, because he doesn't allow his background to like hinder his potential. But what's so unique about Emmerich is that he is so dedicated to protecting the people of Ishgard. I think more so than anybody else. And you would think that that kind of dedication would come from someone who's a pureblood, highborn Ishgardian, but he's not, right? And maybe that's why.
How can I, a proud knight of Ishgard, stand by and do naught while an outsider risks life and limb for our homeland? I swore an oath to protect this city.
To the point where he is willing to sacrifice his best friend without a second thought, right? Like, he shoots the arrow to Estinian's heart when Estinian is taken over by Nidhogg. The priority for Emmerich is the people of Ishgard, and they're the things that come first. That's it. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. And even he apologizes to Estinian, and Estinian knows that. He knows that Emmerich is going to do whatever it takes to protect the people of Ishgard and to strive for peace, which is why I think that's what makes him such a great leader.
I, for my part, owe you an apology. When last we met, I did willingly loose an arrow at your heart. Can you forgive me?
There is naught to forgive, Emmerich. You but acted in defense of Ishgard as is your duty. Were you any less single-minded about it, I would not follow you into battle, nor trust you at my back.
He's even willing to forsake his father because he does believe that the truth is what is going to be best for the people of Ishgard.
But I have faith in the people, Lord Amanalain. I have faith that they will weather this storm and overcome every trial we set before them.
He was just such an interesting character. Definitely one of my favorites. I think that he makes Heavensward, especially in an expansion that focuses on Ishgard, right? All the complexities of Ishgard and like him personifying that, right? Like, you see what Ishgard has been and what it can become through Emmerich.
Our forebears fought not so that we could die, but that we might live. So let us honor their sacrifice and spare our children this death sentence. Let us gift them a new legacy. Life.
Now, Amanalain and Artuarel, they are super interesting. Not going to talk too much about them because I think this video is getting super long. But what I really like about the four Tom's brothers or sons is that I feel like so many people can resonate with what it's like to have to deal with parental expectations, right? Like, I don't know what parent wouldn't have expectations of a better life than they've had for their own children, like, of course. But with these two specifically, like, it's not just you have to do these like incredible things, but then you're also highborn. You're also the sons of House Fortemps. Like, you're also, you know, there's an expectation that goes beyond just like, you know, you have to be successful. Like, no, you have to demonstrate leadership. People are going to be looking to you. You have influence, whether you want it or not. And it's funny to see them try their best to navigate this in their own ways. One of my favorite scenes is the scene between Emanelaine and Thancred, where something happens. I think Honor Ra gets ambushed, right? Like, Emanelaine's manservant. And so, like, Emanelaine's all conflicted, and he's just, I don't know, I think he was already like kind of feeling melancholy up until that point, and then Thancred literally punches sense into him, but not after Emanelaine takes that first punch.
Tell me, what was I supposed to do? Someone, anyone, tell me, what was I supposed to do?
Stop looking to others. You make your choice and you live with the consequences.
And what would you know about consequences? You who always know just what to say and just what to do. Your every deed is greeted with a round of applause.
You know nothing about me. I have fought tooth and nail for the people I hold dear. Done everything in my power to save them. And I have failed. Learn to live with it. I have.
He's doing that immature thing of like, oh, you think you know me because you're older and whatever. But it's like, no, you don't know what Thancred has gone through and is going through. You're not the only one who's suffering. You're not the only one who's felt these things. But what are you going to do about it? And I think that's why Thancred is so frustrated, is because Emanelaine just can't, like, he's just so, he doesn't realize that in being conflicted, other people are waiting, you know, like other people are suffering. Like, literally Honor Roy gets, you know, ambushed because he can't decide what he wants for himself. And it was really interesting seeing Emanelaine, of all people, ask Emmerich, like, how do you know you're making the right decision?
How do you do it, my lord? How do you lead with such certainty when so many of our countrymen will not hear of peace with the Dravanians? Some of them hate you almost as much as the dragons themselves. They decry you as a patricide in the streets. They even tried to kill you, for God's sakes. Yet still you march on, undaunted, where no archbishop dared to tread. What is your secret?
It's these two specific characters where you have Emmerich, who's super dedicated, willing to, you know, do anything for what he believes in. And then you have Emanelaine, who knows he has a role, has had all these expectations pushed on him from birth, and has no idea how to navigate all of that, right? And just to see those two interact was really, really interesting. One of my favorite things that happens in Heavensward is that when the truth finally comes out, not all of the Ishgardians are on board, right? And I think that's like, it's so interesting because I feel like up until that point in Final Fantasy XIV, everything seems very linear. It seems very, there's good versus evil. There's, you know, bad guy versus good guy. It's very clear, like, here's the line and you can pick what side you're on. But we're the heroes. We've got Emmerich. We know the truth. We're the ones treating with the dragons. We're trying to organize this peace conference. We're doing all these things for the good of all people in Ishgard, and there's still some people who refuse to accept the truth for whatever reason. Like, they have very compelling and valid reasons. They've lost loved ones who had to fight in the war. Their loved ones were slaughtered by the dragons. Like, who cares what the truth is? A dragon killed the person that I love. It's interesting that it gets so bad that someone is willing to sacrifice or assassinate Emmerich, right? Because it's like, even when we beat the bad guy, right? Like, even when we beat the game, there's this other chapter of like, that's not a victory to everybody. Like, even though we won, there are some people that are not cool with that, even though we're doing it for them. And I love that because I think it's just so real. right? Like, that's what happens in the real world. To get 100% of a group of people to think the same way and agree on the same thing, I'm to the point, where I feel like that's impossible. And maybe that's because I'm of the generation that grew up with Twitter and social media, and it's like no one can agree on anything and everyone is arguing. Like, maybe I have lost faith in humanity a little bit, but I do love how it takes Nidhogg attacking his own kin, right? It takes Nidhogg stabbing Vidofnir that gets the naysayers of Ishgard to realize, like, okay, Nidhogg isn't just attacking Ishgardians. He's attacking his own people, right? Like, his own kin. He's attacking other dragons. So I think that's the wake-up call of, like, Nidhogg is the one who's doing this war. Like, he's the one who wants to keep fighting. Regardless of whether they think it's true or not, at that point, everyone can agree that Nidhogg has to go down, right? Like, that's the point where they all unite. Now we're going to do a speed round of things that I missed or things that I forgot and just took note of when I was on my second playthrough. So the first thing is the dragon lineage. I was super confused the first time. I'm like, who's part of whose brood and brood brothers and sisters, and I don't know. Like, now I get it. And having played through all of Final Fantasy XIV, it was really interesting playing it back because now I know who Tiamat is, right? Like, I didn't understand why there was this big dragon on Azizla that is just willing to be chained up for the rest of their life. And now that it's because she was the one who was convinced by the Ascians in her despair of losing Bahamut to summit Bahamut's shade that ends up being cast to the moon, and that's the one that wreaks havoc on everybody. Like, she's so regretful of that she's willing to be imprisoned for the rest of her life. And even when Midgard Sorber talks to her, she's just like, no, I'm so sad and regretful that I'm just gonna stay here and just drown in my guilt. That was sad. I feel like the idea of Midgard Sormer following us had so much more weight now that I understand who he is, right? Like, the first time I was just like, there's just a dragon following me. Cool. And like, he was the first dragon that we defeated, so I didn't get a sense of his importance in the story until later on. So yeah, my second playthrough, I was like, oh my god, this is such a bigger deal than I thought. I also forgot what the deal was with Yshtola's eyesight. Like, I knew there was something funky with her eyes, but I just forgot. I don't know if she's blind. I think she is blind, and she uses her ability to, like, sense ether to be able to see.
I might have known that it would not escape your notice. It has been this way since I returned from the life stream.
I need not tell you that it consumes your very life force to see by sensing the ether around you. Take care of yourself.
Okay, so this is weird, but I completely forgot the anti-tower. Like, I forgot it when I was doing it in New Game Plus. I was like, I don't remember this at all. I think I remembered when we got to the very last boss, and it's that, like, those dolls, because, they're kind of hard to forget, but the whole dungeon, I just completely forgot it for some reason, and I don't know why. It must never come up in, like, Dungeon Roulette, because I must have only done it the one time. All right, so I loved Heavensward. It was such a treat, and it was a treat to play it all over again. It was so much fun. It's funny because I tried to go in thinking, like, would I recommend people starting here if they're new to Final Fantasy XIV rather than A Realm Reborn. I did talk about that in my review of A Realm Reborn, saying that, like, if you play A Realm Reborn like a prequel, I think it hits different because, like, now that I've gone through all of Final Fantasy XIV, everything in A Realm Reborn makes sense. But the first time I went through it, I was very confused, right? It's like just so many things flew over my head since there's just so much that gets introduced. And because Heavensward is so much more straightforward and linear, I feel like it almost feels like a different game. It is the same world, but it feels like a different game. Honestly, and I know some people might hate this take, but just knowing the people that I wish I could recommend Final Fantasy XIV to, I really do feel like Heavensward would be a better starting point. And then it would be awesome if someone like Count Edmont can kind of narrate a summary or a recap of what you need to know from A Realm Reborn and going into Heavensward. It's just like, in terms of story aspect, right? Like if you're playing for multiplayer and MMO and all of that, I get it. But for someone who was playing like me, I felt like Heavensward was just such a, it's just such a stronger story. But also, Alphinaud's arc wouldn't hit as hard if you hadn't gone through A Realm Reborn, so it's hard. So I get why people feel the way that they do. Either way, Heavensward was just such a treat, but I am so excited to keep going with my New Game Plus. I didn't want to start Stormblood until I finished this video because I didn't want my thoughts to get muddled with Stormblood, but now that I finished recording this video, literally today, I'm going to start the Stormblood New Game Plus. I'm getting tired and I'm starting to lose my ability to speak. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!